No. Yes. No. No. Yes, yes.
It was always a matter of contention in the 90s and early 2000s, wanting to pass time with all the amazing video games that were coming out back then, to the point where it would often cause conflict with the parental units over whether or not us kids should be allowed to fuel our screen addiction unhindered. I remember my mom set the limit really early on. No video games during the school week, and weekend play sessions could never go beyond a couple hours at a time. In retrospect, this was a good thing. But at the time, all I could think about was the dread of boredom after being pulled away from the computer. So after what I'd imagine was many different instances of me whining about being idle as a kid, my mom came up with what was an admittedly genius plan. She would enable my screen addiction and allow me more computer time, under the condition that I play a specific selection of games that she deemed productive enough. And by her grace, my dear mother had successfully conned me into playing the unhinged 90s era cringe known as the Cluefinders. The Cluefinders are a weird bunch. They're an odd mix of tropes, from Scooby-Doo to Dora the Explorer, mixed with something like Magic School Bus or Recess.
Top scientific research teams have been sent in to investigate, including local celebrities, the Cluefinders.
They're a group of supposedly really intelligent kids who go on adventures, look for clues, solve mysteries, and save the day. The members are as follows. Santiago, who's basically the invention guy.
The faces within the face?
Leslie, who's basically the smart bookworm.
What an endearing neighborhood personality.
Joni, who's basically the fearless, bold adventurer.
Wow.
And Owen, the hungry skater boy, who I guess has good intuition.
A tsunami!
Salami?
The team is joined by their dog Socrates, who is allegedly 28 and has multiple PhDs.
I was traveling incognito.
The team is also joined by a robotic turtle thing,
A turbocharged robotic turtle.
called Laptrap, who's best known for sassy complaints and criticisms.
Something's happened again. I know it. I go away for 2 minutes.
Let's take a look at our young genius's first adventure. Well, the first one that I played anyway. Our adventure begins in Egypt. The kids are on a summer field trip to help their professor, who I'm not sure if he's their actual teacher or just some crazy college professor who knows them.
This tomb has remained undisturbed for thousands of years.
They're uncovering the tomb of an ancient pharaoh, which you would think would attract the attention of some more significant individuals other than a professor and his 4 grade schoolers. Though the fact that the tomb seems to be closed with some kind of padlock leads me to question the authenticity. Our friends aren't the only ones here for the grand opening. We have here Sir Alistair Lovelace, who seems pretty rude and eager to open the tomb as quickly as possible.
Just open the tomb, you silly little man.
They get inside and young fearless Joni wastes no time in trying on some of the ancient buried jewelry stashed inside there. But unlucky for her, like everything in Egyptian tombs, the ring she tries on seems to have some nefarious curse and wraps itself tightly around her finger. Basically something out of the Mummy movie. You know, the second one. The sensible thing to do for our young genius here would of course be to alert to the adults in the room this alarming phenomenon. So naturally, she doesn't do that. The kids get out of the way so they don't make the place a total mess, and as night falls, we see the professor taking some notes for his work, when suddenly...
Doctor, quickly now, load everything into the trucks, including my esteemed colleague.
Sir Lovelace is thrilled to have found this particular tomb, as the pharaoh it belonged to was supposedly aligned with Set, the ancient Egyptian embodiment of chaos. Therefore, Sir Lovelace is looking forward to utilizing any of such chaotic power found within it for his own use.
The world will know the power of Set and the genius of me. There are so many evil things for us to do.
Meanwhile, at their hotel, the kids are trying to figure out why Joni's finger has its own pet spider.
Well, Joni, I guess this makes you an international jewel thief.
Maybe it likes you, Joni.
Can you at least pretend you're helping?
Ultimately, they give up. and decide to just tell the professor the day after. Except, of course, the location of the tomb was completely deserted. No treasure, no professor, no Loveless.
I've got a feeling the professor is in trouble.
We've gotta help him.
How are we gonna do that, Joni? Socrates found a hidden door.
This one was hidden away from the other treasures, so it must be very important.
And it's our only clue.
How can we read it?
We need to find someone to translate this scroll. Let's put it in the backpack and get back to Cairo.
And thus we get to work. First, we need to get ourselves out of the tomb and back to civilization, into the city of Cairo. And to do that, we need to rent a vehicle from a nearby vendor. Since no one is actually old enough to drive a vehicle, we let our machine companion do the steering, which really can't be much safer if I'm honest. The absolute indifference to renting a car to 4 preteens and a dog that this guy just smiles straight through the whole transaction is amazing.
Pick the Jeep you want when you're ready to go.
It's Friday.
We get to Cairo and once again our dog follows his instincts to take the kids into this unassuming shop where an insane elderly man plays dead inside a sarcophagus.
Lucky for us, the place is empty.
Oh boy, customers!
He says he can translate the odd message the kids found in the tomb, but to do that, he'll need stone tablets with symbols on them, coincidentally called hieroglyphs, named as such because for some reason everyone around town gets their hands on these tablets daily, and yet no one really seems to understand the language, other than this old man, who doesn't even have any of his own.
Bring me back 12 hieroglyphs, and I'm sure I can decipher the first clue.
You can count on us.
Lucky for us, the adults in Cairo, in this game, are so incompetent that they legitimately need the help of 4 preteens to accomplish their day jobs.
Thank heavens you're here. Can you help me get these parcels out?
Help my waiter deliver the right amount of coffee.
Cut off just the right amount from one of these 4 bolts of fabric hanging off the top shelf.
Which would or should technically count as child labor, but since we're getting paid in game progression, I'll let this one slide. I have to say, the accents on these so-called Egyptian locals, they're just a lot.
Your mental capacity is astounding.
No way. Another order?
You are very wise for being so young.
My last staff sent all of my boxes to a wandering tribe of penguins in Antarctica.
The voice actors in this game were committed to something. Even the kids' voice actors. My favorite line from any of the kids comes from our jewel thief, Joni, and it's literally just
wow.
It's just the deadpan, straight-faced simplicity of saying
wow
that just kills me every time. We work enough to get paid in as many hieroglyphs as the shopkeeper offers until they go,
I'm all out of hieroglyphs for now.
I am so bummed.
But I could still use your help.
At which point, we don't even let them finish their sad, pathetic plea for further help and return to the old man who reveals another part of the scroll's clue.
A lonely vigil, I guard the gate. 5,000 years and still I wait. Where am I?
At this point, we have to repeat the process about 3 or 4 more times. Now this is how they get you. I remember taking like a full week to get through it all. I did enjoy the fabric store though.
I am so in awe of you. You rule.
She had this one line where she's like,
You are right. You are so right. You are so right.
And it's really validating, I'm not gonna lie. Meanwhile,
Good evening, Professor.
Loveless starts talking about getting the ring and unveiling his evil plans for a ceremony. The professor, however, isn't really taking any of it seriously.
You have quite a wonderful dungeon, Loveless.
You must come with me. It's time we had a little talk.
What the dog doing?
How nice. Shall we talk about Egypt?
Don't feign ignorance with me, Professor. Where is the ring?
And what ring would that be?
You know what I'm talking about, Professor. The ring.
The ring.
The ring. Do not mock me. You will tell me where to find the ring, otherwise your students will... Wait. Your students? Of course.
Back in Cairo, the kids manage to get all the clues deciphered, which sees them to the statue in town, which, if touched in just the right way, will open up a secret chamber.
Whoa! Dudes, that rocked!
Within which lies a game of Tetris and the crazy old man from before.
How did he get here before us?
When you get to be 5,000 years old, you'll learn about a secret passage or two.
Let's just go with it. You solve the puzzle and you get another scroll, which basically gives the old man an excuse to give us another riddle.
The threat to our land is deep and dark. Stopping it won't be a walk in the park. You have proven worthy and wise. What a swell bunch of gals and guys. Yeah, you can't walk or fly there. You'll have to float. So get out of here and go south in a boat.
So the team heads over to the docks, and the vendor literally has the gall to make us build our own damn boat to sail south.
Do you have a boat we can rent?
Sure do, but there's some assembly required.
Do I look?
Why is every shopkeep outsourcing to these kids? After brute forcing this one, we get to a secret area on the Nile River, guarded by a cat. The cat says the doors to the palace need gemstones to open.
But some of the gems were stolen by the vile mice in this area.
And so now we gotta do the same song and dance, except instead of human shopkeeps, we have the wacky mouse archetypes. Listen to this.
Let's go, you mice. We've got lots of work to do, see?
You and I, as a duo, we are magnifique!
Let us expedite our task, fellas, for rapidness is the key to the completion of our mission.
I think my favorite was probably helping the mice to find their cheese on the map, particularly because of the silly voiceovers we'd get for succeeding.
Hey, fellas! Cheese!
I like you kids, so winsome and winning.
After finishing a few cycles of collecting gems, we get one of these amazing scenes with one of the crayon men.
Hey, look out!
Hey, let go, you big bully. Hey, come on, fight fair. Hey, I can take you. Stop, let go!
Tagu Siam sing, come to Papa, little ring.
Yuck! Is that thing alive?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys feel like giving me a hand here or what?
Oh, sorry.
Pretend you're helping?
Oh no! They got the ring!
She's a real fighter, that Joni. The goons deliver it back to Mr. Loveless. He keeps saying he's gonna be so powerful when he does this little ritual, but it's never really clear exactly what the power of chaos is gonna allow him to do.
With the power of Set at my side, the world will soon rue the day they ever heard of me. I swallowed my mint.
We gain access to the palace after collecting like 48 gems, and we come to a room with a talking crocodile head. I remember my kid self having a blast with this for some reason. I don't know, this time around I was way less amused.
Return to the tomb and prepare the ancient contraption of chaos.
Not the ancient contraption of chaos!
How can there be this much chaos?
Looks like chaos has been waiting for us.
You're making a terrible mistake!
Am I?
We finished the puzzle and Joni boldly says,
Wow.
I hope her VA got a lot of work after these games. We enter the palace proper and are greeted by representations of whom I can only assume are Horus, Sobek, Bastet, and Isis. So this is where things get really silly.
Hiya, kids. Welcome to our palace.
We're like really happy to see you, man.
Oh, you better tell him, Horus. Yes, time is of the essence.
Since you've got a big battle with the forces of chaos coming up,
We're gonna enhance your gifts by giving you special powers. We'd fight the forces of chaos ourselves, but we've got a little height problem. Owen, flight.
Leslie, intelligence.
Santiago, strength. Man.
Joni, bravery. Wow.
All right. Neat.
Squawk.
I think it's safe to say that Owen was the one who really lucked out here. He was at least gifted something that no other human could brag about having. Santiago's strength isn't that unique, but at least it's something he didn't have before, and it's objectively useful to have him be our team's Hulk for the rest of the journey. But my god, the girls got completely shafted here. Intelligence? Bravery? Excuse me? Like Leslie wasn't already the smartest, most knowledgeable person here, as indicated by her stacked bio and robotic way of speaking.
Endearing neighborhood personality. What?
But by far the biggest loser is Joni. No other skills or abilities, just the power of YOLO. If anything, this is a debuff.
Quickly, prepare the ancient contraption of chaos.
Ugh, no!
Oh, yes, this pyramid, long buried underground, will rise from beneath the tomb. I will be the most powerful villain on Earth.
Oh
my. They jet us off to another palace, where our professor is supposedly being held captive. But before we save our professor, we gotta do some reading comprehension. I remember being really engaged as a kid by this point, cause at least it was a change of pace from the collectathon of the last two areas. And we were actually coming close to our goal and had 2 cool new superpowers on top of it.
Looks like a group of fresh young heroes. Unfortunately, I already had a hero sandwich for lunch. Who are you people anyhow?
We're the Cluefinders.
We're here to kill chaos.
Get out of here.
After the Sphinx, we have this big Birdman, and one of the coolest voices in this series, bar none.
Hello, young mortals.
He basically puts us through a spelling test to build a bridge, and listening to him say the words again kinda gave me chills.
Now spell this word. He who walked abroad with the jackals at the dawn of man shall once again violate the earth.
Also, look at his baboons.
We must be going around in circles.
Actually, I'd say you were going around in a pyramid. That was terrific. Kids like you don't grow on trees, although many of the things that do are higher in vitamin C.
It's revealed that the ring gives the wearer the power to command Set. Except when Loveless tries to do so, Set in this game wakes up and is immediately a bit of a Chad.
Puny man.
Sheesh, look at the riffraff around here. It's getting so they'll let any group of superpowered juveniles in. What are you kids waiting for? If you want to get away from my jokes, you have to go through that door. I wish I could.
Now spell this word. Limit. There is no limit to how much you can learn.
When we get there, Loveless is acting up and gets thrown into a pit by the giant dog man. Joni talks smack as she usually does.
Hey, big bully, you don't scare us.
Honestly, it's her only superpower at this point. So Leslie comes up with a plan that she honestly could have done without her supposed powers.
Joni, you distract him.
At which point, Joni just jumps on his foot, cause that's obviously really effective. I don't see how Set doesn't just immediately sideswipe her into the pit with Loveless.
Owen, you fly Santiago up to those pistons.
If Owen is able to actually lift Santiago up to the pistons, then Santiago clearly isn't the only one who got super strength. Again, solidifying that Owen won the power-up lottery here. But I guess to be fair, Owen did have the least going for him before this little adventure. So, I guess he deserved a W.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
The pistons are reversed! No! No! That is not correct.
The pyramid's collapsing!
Get me out of here!
Set goes down, we escape, the palace sinks, and the kids anticlimactically revert to normal. We get a nice epilogue scene on the plane. Don't mind the obvious dog in the trench coat.
You kids really saved the day.
And the artifacts were all recovered and returned to their rightful places.
Including the ring.
And the scroll.
Right, and I guess Alistair Lovelace won't be bothering Egypt or us again.
Good riddance!
And of course we couldn't go without one last... I'm not gonna lie, Lovelace was one of the best characters in this game and I wouldn't be mad for a return. That was the 4th grade level difficulty for the Cluefinders. It's actually not the first adventure they've had, but I was too old for the 3rd grade level adventures, so I never experienced them and don't need to go through them now. I will say that the Puzzle of the Pyramid seems to be one of the more unique adventures, but the next game in our retrospective is probably my favorite of the series, and one I remember even better than this one. Or so I thought. Joni and Santiago are deep-sea diving in a sub and come across some strange rectangular artifacts that they bring up to the surface to show Leslie and her grandfather.
Look what we found, Captain Clark. Another one.
They certainly are peculiar, Joni.
The latter of which is a captain who's taken the group out on his boat to apparently do a variety of things.
Maybe they're a clue to why so many ships have been disappearing around here.
The captain's men spot an island in the distance. That's not all they spot though.
Captain! A tsunami! Heading right for us!
For an educational experience, the game wasn't really doing kids any favors by further spreading the misconception that tsunamis are just really big, really high, one-and-done waves.
The first wave in the series can occur within minutes of the earthquake or hours. Areas that are closest to the epicenter.
Thus begins our tale on the secret of the living volcano.
So, you want to know what happens? Well, before you go on, you must...
Joni and Santiago wash up on the beach by themselves, not another friend or crewmate in sight. Not only that, but the volcano in the back seems to be active, causing some rumblings which can't be a good thing. Thankfully, Owen and Leslie come in on the communication device and update on their location.
From all appearances, Owen and I are sequestered in some sort of subterranean chamber with no apparent means of egress.
She means we're stuck underground somewhere.
That's what I said.
As it is, they're in some sort of peculiar chamber, with more of those artifacts stuck to a wall. Or maybe the wall is made of the artifacts? We don't know at this point, but the main deal is that we gotta find our friends and get the heck out of Dodge.
Oh boy, here they go again!
So with a choice of 2 places to go from here, we decide to take a look into the crash site of our boat. Joni and Santiago are expert scuba divers at the ripe old age of 12, so they take their scuba gear from their ship and decide to take a dip into the ocean to see what they can see.
Look! Hey, it's one of those...
Cryptiles!
Cryptiles!
Yes!
Indeed! Yes, quite.
This eccentric council of aristocratic water bubbles informs us about what they call inside. And the fish within the fish. Honestly, it doesn't make much sense, but they're not really that important. The important part is that we need to go on another item collection quest to progress.
Dude, it's the mini-sub! If it's still working, maybe you guys can take her out and get some help.
Okay, here we go, back to Honolulu!
I'm afraid not, Lab Trap. The Lab 5 is only designed for a range of 3 nautical miles.
But it can get to the bottom of the ocean floor to collect the cryptiles.
Oh, thank goodness, the Cluefinders!
The ever-increasing amounts of sophisticated AI these kids have access to. I mean, even if Santiago were the big-brained genius inventing this stuff, where is he getting all his resources?
Wherever did you get it? Internet.
Oh, he's good.
The second resource for cryptiles is another one of those bubble creatures who needs his long body arranged according to the fractions that make them. I really liked fraction problems in these games, and that hasn't changed after all these years.
Wow.
The final stop on our undersea adventure is in front of these various fish statues. They apparently block the way to inside, and we gotta get past their drawn-out word puzzles to pass through. They give you words and ways to alter them. Make the right word to match the 8 words listed below, do it 3 times, and you win. Not the funnest puzzle, but not impossible. With each 8 words completed, our 2 lost friends give us news updates on what the heck is up with their wall of chocolate bars.
We've been conducting experiments and we think we've got something for you.
It's as tough as steel, but as light as plastic.
And it bounces. See? We're back with more helpful information from Mr. Owen Lamb, super detective.
Oh, hell no!
My research indicates that the mysterious writing on these crypt tiles is not from any known recorded language, ancient or modern.
Big deal. Here's something really cool. They taste great!
Frankly, the underwater detour isn't that fascinating, so let's get back on dry land, shall we?
Oh well, there's no crossing here.
What are you talking about, Laptrap? We can just hop over these rocks.
Hey, look! The water's receding.
Guys, I don't know what you're doing up there, but whatever it is, it's flooding our chamber with boiling water.
Joni, get back here. Look! The water's coming back.
Now, this is really just an excuse for a puzzle, but I always found this phenomenon so fascinating. Owen and Leslie are lucky they can reach us on the comm device, otherwise there'd be nothing to stop fearless Joni from going about her day after draining the acid.
Hey, Joni, chill out.
Joni, watch where you're going. A monster!
A chicken.
Unhand me chickens, you varlets! And that goes for your flying teacup as well. Well now, whom do I have to thank for me daring rescue from this dreaded living island?
Living island?
We discover the island's all kinds of crazy, what with weird weather systems, plants, shifty terrain, and of course the very active volcano.
Who did you say you were?
We're the Cluefinders. We're...
Clue, says you? Volcano, says I.
What kind of segue is that?
The secret to this living island lies below. Nearly all of me fellow castaways have been sucked in, lost to the ravenous hunger of this living island. Use the crypt tiles wisely, and the chamber will open.
Once again, we're on the old item collection quest.
Wow, that looks like an American village from the Civil War era.
Which has a storm cloud of raining fish beating down upon one of the sheds.
Something's fishy. Rain in only one spot?
And fish rain.
Actually, powerful sea storms sometimes suck seawater and fish into their funnels, then rain, fish and all.
This poor lady's gone insane talking to the island for raining on her ancestral stories before she can read them.
I must read these stories before the rain ruins them.
We can help you there.
I adore the kindness of strangers.
What's particularly interesting about these stories is that they actually provide some cool game lore. Our first attempt at leaving met with little success, as the waves seemed to take the shape of monstrous sharks and hurled us back to shore. After this first attempt, one of our friends disappeared suddenly from plain view near the strange mounds on the south shore. Then last week, his wife thought she heard her lost husband's anguished screams in the middle of a moonless night. Since then, others have begun to disappear, and now we all have dreams inhabited by their cries. There's some accounts about islanders trading stories about history from that era, basically an excuse for American history, which brings us to the limitations of these games from an international standpoint. These are very much US relevant games. If you're not American, you're probably not gonna see the value in some of these assignments. They're still doable, but back when I was a kid, simply knowing the name of the states in relation to their acronyms or abbreviations was a struggle in itself.
Where's America? All I can find on the stupid globe is USA! Wow, that looks like an American village from the Revolutionary War era. Look, Santiago, crypt tiles.
It could be dangerous.
Oh, you overgrown asparagus!
Hang on, Joni. I'm on it.
Previously on Game Design.
What is the most appropriate use for a slingshot on a haunted, deserted island filled with hostiles?
Thanks.
No, that's not right.
I stole everybody's crypt tiles and buried them in this patch of dangerous trees.
Why are you locked in the pillory?
I got caught.
This guy is in trouble for stealing and burying treasure, and for some reason his treasure maps are modeled after the states and their locations. We gotta solve the riddles to know where to dig, and Joni tosses the treasure with the crypt tiles our way. While we're walking through the island, we start hearing some random screams in the distance. When we get there, all we see is a hat and what seems to be some kind of moving plant. When we try to pick up the hat, it ends up slithering into the hole. I do gotta hand it to the devs, they at least tried to make a neat little spooky section of the game here. We get all our chocolate bars and head to the faces within the face.
Faces within the face?
Who are just like the fish within the fish, except we gotta do math this time. Which is actually kinda better, cause numbers are more malleable than words, and you don't need as many crypt tiles to fill in all the words. Of course, we have to tune back into the dynamic duo for their amazing insights on crypt tiles.
These crypt tiles seem really solid.
Or not.
How much do you think these gold crypt tiles are worth?
Owen, where were you when I told you that the crypt tiles were not made from any known element? And certainly not from real gold.
I must have been in that other dark, wet underground chamber.
Once done, we dive into the face, slide down a very artificial looking tube, and hooray, we found them.
We found you!
Great, now we're all stuck.
I'm not exactly sure we want to be in a place that could just randomly fill with acid if someone decides to cross the lake above. The gang splits back up as they run in different directions. Joni and Santiago slide into another circular towering room filled to the brim with green pods everywhere.
Wow.
It looks like we're in a big old specimen lab.
Inside one of them, they spot Leslie's grandfather, but before they can even investigate further, they clumsily step into a pod themselves. Like, how do you even make this mistake?
You dudes all right?
Get us out of here!
We're trapped in one of those containers.
Leslie, we found your grandpa. He's
a little tied up at the moment. You'd better get here fast.
We're on our way.
What was that?
I don't know, but I think we're gonna find out.
So you've probably picked up what the game's been putting down by now. We seem to be in the heart of some kind of alien stronghold, deep within the island. Owen and Leslie come to a chasm which should look fairly familiar. Sadly, we don't have a cool bird statue, just a monotone robot giving us our spelling bee.
Countdown sequence initiated. T-minus 16 quagnots. Spell this word. Excite. The clowns used daring stunts to try to excite the quiet audience.
Promptly creating our bridge, we proceed into another room where we can see more of those pods and specimens within them. Earth creatures, basically. The robot on the ground floor spells out the clear purpose for collecting Earthlings.
Remind me again why we keep Earthling brains in our biospheric chambers?
Sustenance. Human brains are served in the finest restaurants.
So we have yet another task on our hands here, free the captives before their brains get eaten. Interesting little puzzle here that I never fully understood as a kid, but it makes more sense now. Seeing as the aliens want to make a sustainable business out of serving Earthling brains in restaurants, they have to figure out how to keep a sustainable population of the food they want. So we gotta run a predator-prey simulation for the course of about 200 years to ensure that the amount of the starting species will allow said species to last that amount of time. Even though I never understood it, I vividly remembered running the simulations and the cool visuals and sounds that it made.
Survival.
I hear something.
We better hit accept and get out of here.
Not sure why working out these simulations allows the pods to unlock, but it does, and the species held within are freed, so that's neat. Rinse and repeat, and finally we're able to free the humans, our friends, and our crew. Some of the folks we helped along the way got captured immediately after we left them, so it's really their lucky day that we're here. Can't celebrate too long though, cause the aliens are back and we book it into what appears to be their central control room. The kids are faced with like 4 different unlabeled buttons on a dashboard, right? And as far as we can tell, us and this motley crew of people from the 1800s don't have a way to escape. For some reason, Owen of all people has the right idea here.
Don't touch them. We don't know what they'll do.
Dudes, what do we have to lose?
Owen's right.
You were right?
Wow! 1 in a row! It's a new record!
One of my most oddly buried memories from childhood is the rhythmic counting that the AI was doing in this scene. So hearing it again was actually really satisfying.
Boogert, tie, unk, boogert, tie, me, boogert, tie, bronze.
Rimpy, ferva, perbidex, wara, ufa, moonera.
One button started the countdown to a launch sequence. Another button stopped the weird weather disturbances on the island. The third opened a way out to the sea, and the fourth began another supposed tsunami sequence.
Areas that are closest to the epicenter will experience the waves much sooner.
Area Army chickens! Climb on board!
What's that sound?
I think I pressed the tsunami button.
Gangway!
So we hop a ride off the island and abandon whoever might not have been captured in the last couple hours.
Wow.
That's the most enthusiastic wow she's given us up until now, and I kind of hate it.
Where did it go?
No one is going to believe this.
There are still 2 cryptiles left in Joni's backpack.
Oops.
I thought it was feeling kinda light.
Oh no!
Where are they?
Out there. Somewhere.
So with that, our journey ends, and I do like the little touch of having the 2 cryptiles that Joni lost be floating in the middle of the ocean, to act as our closing menu.
See you in the funny papers. Of course, if you're in them, they couldn't be all that funny.
There are a bunch of Cluefinders games. I won't cover all of those in this video cause honestly I've had enough academics for 1 year, and I am not smarter than a 5th grader. I can at least go over the general plot of the next game for those who are interested. This one takes a more homebound approach as our story begins with the gang playing frisbee in their lawns. Santiago tosses it to Joni, and Joni calls him a little weak bitch and shows him how to really throw a frisbee.
Let me show you how to really throw this thing.
I never understood the logic of kids who just want to go all out in throwing stuff. How the heck are you gonna play any kind of sport that features a projectile in the close vicinity of breakable windows? Owen tells her to chill out, and their neighbor comes over to ask how they're doing. Leslie says one of her more robotic lines.
We're exploring the aerodynamics of this projectile.
That's a big word for Elmo.
She means we're tossing a frisbee.
Anyway, Joni predictably throws the frisbee out of bounds into the next yard and is absolutely shocked by this development. She and Santiago go to look for it, and they get swallowed up by the earth very quickly. Owen and Leslie investigate after hearing the monotone screams of their friends. We seem to have an underground rescue mission on our hands, basically the inverse of the last adventure, with Owen and Leslie being the heroes this time. To summarize the plot, there is a living, talking plant civilization underground that's preparing to attack the surface. Turns out the nice old neighbor lady is actually the leader of the civilization, and this transformation sequence was surprisingly grotesque, more than I remember it being. Owen and Leslie strike a deal with her to help resolve the existing pollution. We repeat a bunch of academic activities and the day is saved. The end. You can tell this is my least favorite plot of the bunch, but not only that, it's also my least liked set of subjects. There's a lot of chemistry going on here, not like actual complicated chemistry, but a lot of chemical concepts. And if there's one thing I later came to hate in my academic years, it was chemistry. So I wasn't about to touch this again with a 10-foot pole. So why have we taken this educational trip through these games? Well, firstly, to hear Joni say,
wow,
but also to actually judge how effective or at least fun these games would have been to get kids into doing a bit of after-school academics. Honestly, a lot of the puzzles aren't half bad at all. Some can feel a little cryptic, but most are simple enough to understand, and the ones that don't overstay their welcome can actually leave you feeling like you had a fun experience. Some of the other adventures, like the reading one, also incorporated some more active gameplay elements to them, which made them even more fun. And as someone who's been a bit more partial to reading and writing, this one was always more fun to tackle. One understated feature that I haven't mentioned is the progression system. There are 4 to 5 levels of difficulty for each subject area or activity. You can set the level to one you're more comfortable with at any time, but the game itself gradually increases the level of difficulty the more successful you are at previous difficulties. I'm gonna assume that the coding behind this is really simple, and after you finish like 10 iterations of an activity successfully, it just goes up in level. If you're racing through them, the difficulty gets higher faster, but that's just the impression I got. If you ever need help clicking on the characters, the dog,
The answer to the problem on the sign is a mixed fraction.
or the NPC will give you a hint. Considering I was able to get through the games fine as a kid, I have to say it's a solid educational experience. Would I recommend it to kids nowadays? Sure. Will kids nowadays care about it given all the shiny new graphical presentations they're exposed to?
I'm looking good.
Maybe not. But hey, that's up to the parents. Honestly, I've never heard or met any other person who's played these games, and probably for good reason. Even if you were enough of a nerd or in need of academic help to willingly play them, you probably wouldn't admit to it, or you'd wipe it from your memory. But as an adult, I find myself with a lot of nostalgia towards these experiences, to where I'll gladly share them. I really gotta give my mom props for how she saw and respected my affinity for electronic entertainment, that she let me play these during the week. If you insist on making sure your kids get better at school, and your kids insist on being on a computer or iPad or console, find something that's productive that they can do, that they could be interested in. Limits are important, but if they're really hurting over it, meet them halfway. If they're obsessed with games, give them something that'll teach them valuable skills or lessons, something stimulating. Show interest in something they like. They'll value it, be happier for it, and will probably remember you fondly for it in their adulthood too. That's all for this installment of old games that nobody's heard of that somehow shaped my childhood. Feel free to leave a like or a dislike as it suits your experience watching this video. Anyway, that's it. Bye.
Well, it's been great working with you. Maybe I'll see you in the next adventure.
Not if we see you first, dude.
Leave the comedy to me, kid.